Picture this. It's 2 a.m. The highway is empty. The rest of the world is asleep. Families in warm beds, office workers with their alarms set for morning, people living lives built around routine and comfort. And there, cutting through the darkness, is a truck driver. Alone, focused, covering ground that most people will never see at hours most people will never experience. No one watching, no one managing, just the road, the load, and the decisions that come with both. From the outside, people see a job. They see someone driving a vehicle for a living. They see long hours, difficult conditions, and a lifestyle they couldn't imagine choosing. But what they don't see, what they almost never talk about, is the psychology behind it. The mental architecture of a person who not only survives this life, but chooses it, returns to it, builds an identity around it. Because here's what the research actually tells us. Truck drivers are not ordinary people doing an ordinary job. They're a specific type of human being shaped by personality, forged by experience, and built, genuinely built, for something that most people couldn't handle for a week. This is the psychology of a truck driver. And by the end of this, whether you drive or not, you will never look at a truck the same way again. Let's start at the beginning. Why does someone choose this life in the first place? Psychology has a concept called vocational identity. The idea that certain people are drawn to specific types of work, not just for money or opportunity, but because something in their personality aligns with what that work demands. And trucking has one of the strongest vocational identities of any profession on the planet. Think about what trucking actually requires from a person before they even turn the key. It requires comfort with uncertainty. You don't always know what the road will throw at you. Weather, traffic, mechanical problems, difficult customers at the delivery point. It requires self-direction. No one is sitting next to you telling you what to do every hour. It requires physical endurance, mental stamina, and an ability to sit with your own thoughts for hours at a time without falling apart. Most people, when you describe those conditions, immediately say, "I could never do that." And they mean it, not because they're weak, but because their psychological makeup genuinely isn't built for it. Research in occupational psychology shows that people who thrive in autonomous, high-responsibility, low-supervision roles score significantly higher in what's called conscientiousness, one of the big 5 personality traits. Conscientious people are disciplined. They follow through. They take ownership of outcomes without needing someone to hold them accountable. Now think about what happens when a driver picks up a load. That cargo becomes their responsibility the moment it's on a truck. No one is checking in every hour. No one is watching the cameras to make sure they're doing it right. The driver either delivers that load safely and on time, or they don't. And the ones who last in this industry, the ones who build real careers, are the ones for whom that responsibility doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like respect, like trust, like finally being treated as the capable adult they always knew they were. That psychological need to be trusted with something that matters and then left to handle it is one of the most powerful drivers behind why people choose trucking. And it's one of the reasons so many drivers who try desk jobs end up back behind the wheel within a year. Here's something most people don't understand about truck drivers. The solitude isn't a downside they put up with. For many, it's one of the reasons they stay. Psychology research on solitude, particularly work done by researchers at the University of Rochester, shows that not all alone time is the same. There's forced isolation, which damages mental health. And there's chosen solitude, which actually strengthens it. People who regularly spend time alone by choice develop stronger emotional regulation, clearer thinking, and a deeper sense of self than people who are constantly surrounded by noise and social stimulation. Truck drivers get a version of chosen solitude that almost no other profession provides. Hours inside a cab that becomes, over time, a deeply personal space. Their music, their podcasts, their thoughts, their way of processing the world at their own pace without interruption. Consider a driver who spent 15 years on long-haul routes. He once said something that stuck with a lot of people in the industry. He said, "Most people spend their whole lives running from their own thoughts. I spend mine driving straight into them. And it changed me in ways I still can't fully explain." That's not unusual. Many experienced drivers describe a mental shift that happen somewhere in their first few years on the road. The silence that once felt uncomfortable starts to feel like clarity. The long stretches that once felt lonely start to feel like freedom. And the self-knowledge that comes from spending that much time inside your own head, from having to entertain, motivate, and manage yourself for hours every day, becomes one of the most valuable things they own. Research in mindfulness and cognitive psychology supports this. People who regularly engage in periods of quiet reflection show measurably better problem-solving ability, emotional intelligence, and stress tolerance than those who are constantly externally stimulated. Truck drivers, in many ways, are practicing a form of forced mindfulness that people in other professions pay hundreds of dollars in courses to learn. Now, let's talk about pressure, because trucking is one of the highest pressure occupations that exists. And the way drivers handle that pressure reveals something extraordinary about how their minds work. Every trip carries real stakes. The cargo has value, sometimes enormous value. The schedule has consequences. Missed delivery windows cost money, damage relationships, sometimes in contracts. The road has genuine physical danger. Weather conditions that would make most drivers pull over. Traffic situations that demand split-second decisions. Mechanical warnings that require immediate judgment calls in the middle of nowhere at 3 in the morning. And yet, the most experienced drivers don't describe their job as stressful in the way office workers describe their jobs as stressful. They describe it as demanding. There's an important psychological difference between those two words. Stress, in the research, is what happens when pressure exceeds your perceived ability to cope. Demand is what happens when pressure matches or slightly exceeds your ability, and you rise to meet it. The difference is confidence. The difference is experience. The difference is a mind that has been tested enough times that it no longer panics. It assesses. Psychologists call this phenomenon stress inoculation. The idea is that repeated exposure to manageable challenges builds a kind of mental immunity to pressure. Every difficult trip a driver completes, every storm they navigate, every breakdown they handle, every tight deadline they meet, adds another layer to that immunity. After years on the road, the things that would send an ordinary person into a panic become, for an experienced driver, just another problem to solve. Think about a driver hitting black ice at 3 a.m. on a mountain pass with a full load behind them. For most people, that scenario is the stuff of nightmares. For a seasoned driver, it becomes a technical problem. Reduce speed, increase following distance, read the road surface, use the engine brake carefully, find the safest line through. It's not that they don't feel the danger. They feel it clearly, but their brain responds to danger with focus rather than panic. And that is a genuinely rare and powerful thing. Here is where the psychology gets really interesting. Research in social psychology shows that the jobs people hold for extended periods don't just fill their time. They shape their identity. Who we are, how we see ourselves, what we value, what we're proud of, all of it gets influenced by what we spend our working hours doing and becoming. But trucking does something to identity that most careers don't. It doesn't just influence who drivers are at work. It rewires who they are entirely. The values the road teaches, self-reliance, patience, accountability, respect for things beyond your control, don't stay inside the cab. They come home with the driver. They show up in how they parent, in how they handle conflict, in how they respond when life doesn't go to plan. In a quiet, unshakable way, many long-haul drivers carry themselves that people notice without always being able to explain. There's a reason truck drivers often describe the road as their teacher. Not metaphorically, literally, because the road gives feedback that humans rarely give each other. It's honest. It's immediate. It doesn't soften the lesson to protect your feelings. If you make a poor decision out there, you find out quickly. And if you make good decisions consistently, you build something in yourself that no classroom, no manager, and no performance review ever could, a bone-deep confidence in your own judgment. Research on self-efficacy, the belief in your own ability to handle what life puts in front of you, shows that it develops most powerfully through what psychologists call mastery experiences. Doing hard things and succeeding at them. Not easy things, not simulated things, Real challenges with real consequences and real results. Truck drivers collect mastery experiences every single working day of their lives. No honest conversation about the psychology of truck drivers is complete without talking about what the road costs. Because it does cost something, and the way drivers manage that cost reveals as much about their psychology as anything else. The research on relationships in high-travel occupations is consistent and clear. Physical absence creates emotional strain. Missing birthdays, anniversaries, school events, family dinners, over time that accumulates. And drivers know this. They feel it. The call home from a truck stop at 9 p.m. when the kids are already in bed. The voice of a partner who says everything is fine, but sounds tired in a way that says something else entirely. What's psychologically fascinating is how drivers process this. Research on emotional compartmentalization shows that people in demanding, high-focus occupations develop an ability to mentally separate their professional and personal lives that most people never need to develop. For a driver, when they're on the road, they have to be on the road. They can't afford to be distracted by what's happening at home when they're handling a truck at highway speed. And when they're home, the good ones learn to be fully home, fully present, fully aware that the time they have is limited and valuable. There's also something powerful in what drivers report about their appreciation for home. Studies on contrast psychology show that people value things more when they regularly experience their absence. The driver who has spent a week sleeping in a cab appreciates a meal at a kitchen table in a way that someone who has never been away simply can't. The ones who make it work, who build lasting relationships despite the distance, often describe the time they do have together as more intentional, more focused, and more genuinely connected than couples who are together every single evening but rarely truly present. That's not to minimize the sacrifice. It's real, it's hard, and it takes a specific kind of strength on both sides to make it work. But the psychological resilience that drivers build through navigating that challenge, year after year, adds another layer to who they become. So what is the end result of all of this? What does a lifetime on the road actually produce in a human being? Research in adult development psychology points to a consistent set of qualities in psychologically mature people. Emotional stability, realistic self-assessment, comfort with uncertainty, the ability to delay gratification, a values-driven approach to decisions rather than an emotion-driven one, and perhaps most importantly, a settled sense of who you are that doesn't depend on the approval of others. Those are the exact qualities that decades of trucking tends to build. They're not the loudest people in the room. They don't need to be. They've driven through enough darkness to know that volume doesn't equal strength. They're not the most easily impressed. They've seen too much of the world from too many vantage points to get excited about things that don't matter. And they're not the most comfortable with small talk or corporate games, because they've spent years in an environment where what you do is what counts and nothing else. What they are consistently is exactly who they say they are. Because the road, the long, honest, unforgiving road, has a way of making sure of that. If you're a truck driver watching this, the life you've chosen has been building you into something that most people spend their whole lives trying to become and never quite get there. The patience, the resilience, the self-knowledge, the unshakable ability to handle what comes. None of that happened by accident. It happened because you showed up every shift and let the road do what it does. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you want more content that goes deep into the psychology behind the trucking life, make sure you subscribe, because there's a lot more to talk about, and we're just getting started.